The school hallway echoed with laughter, not the good kind. The kind that sends shivers down your spine, the kind that meant someone was hurting. In this case, it was 15-year-old Sarah, Michael's daughter. They were taunting her again, led by the notorious school bully, Jake. Michael had seen it happen too many times. The way Sarah's shoulders slumped, her gaze fixed on the floor, her silence a scream for help. This time, Michael saw red. He had tried everything. He'd spoken to Sarah's teachers, even the principal. They all promised action, but nothing changed. Jake and his cronies continued their reign of terror, pushing Sarah further into herself with each passing day. Michael felt a familiar surge of helplessness. He was supposed to be her protector, her shield against the world's harshness. Yet, here he was, failing. That day, as Michael watched Sarah disappear around the corner, a silent vow took root in his heart. He would protect his little girl, even if it meant breaking all the rules. He would silence the bullies, even if his own voice became the storm. This was his promise, a father's desperate plea to keep his daughter safe. The principal's office felt suffocating. Michael sat there, his hands clenched into fists, as he recounted the day's events. He spoke of Sarah's torment, his voice tight with suppressed fury. He spoke of the school's inaction, his words laced with bitter disappointment. The principal, a portly man with thinning hair, listened with a practiced air of concern. He nodded at all the right moments, murmuring platitudes about a safe learning environment. But his words rang hollow in Michael's ears. They were empty promises, the kind that had been broken countless times before. Michael left the office feeling defeated, the weight of the principal's inaction heavy on his chest. He knew what he had to do. The school wouldn't protect his daughter. He would have to take matters into his own hands. He would confront Jake, the ringleader, the source of Sarah's misery. It was a dangerous path, fraught with uncertainty, but Michael was out of options. The park was deserted, the swings swaying gently in the wind. It was here that Jake and his gang hung out, their laughter echoing through the emptiness. Michael's heart pounded in his chest, a drumbeat of fear and resolve. He saw Jake leaning against a tree, a sneer playing on his lips. This was it. Michael walked towards him, his steps heavy, his purpose unwavering. "Leave my daughter alone," he said, his voice low and menacing. Jake scoffed, his eyes filled with disdain. He wasn't used to anyone standing up to him, least of all some girl's father. But Michael wasn't backing down. He stood his ground, his gaze locked on Jake's, a silent challenge hanging in the air. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, the tension so thick it was almost palpable. Then Jake laughed, a harsh grating sound. "Or what?" he taunted, taking a step closer to Michael. Michael, fueled by a father's love and a simmering rage, took a step closer himself. "Don't test me," he warned, his voice barely a whisper. The confrontation was brief, brutal, and utterly unexpected. Michael, fueled by adrenaline and fear for his daughter's well-being, lunged at Jake. It wasn't a fight, not really. It was a desperate act of protection. A father pushing back against a bully who had tormented his child for far too long. The other boys, Jake's cronies, looked on in stunned silence. They had never seen anyone challenge Jake's authority, let alone physically confront him. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. Jake, caught off guard, stumbled backward, tripping over a tree root. He landed hard, his arrogance momentarily forgotten as pain shot up his leg. Michael stood over him, his chest heaving, his fists still clenched. "Stay away from my daughter," he growled, his voice hoarse with emotion. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Jake nursing his wounded pride and a throbbing ankle. As he left the park, Michael felt a strange mix of guilt and satisfaction. He had crossed a line, but he had also protected his daughter. At least that's what he told himself. Word of the confrontation spread through the school like wildfire. The story, as these things often do, became distorted, twisted into something unrecognizable. Michael, the concerned father, was transformed into an aggressive monster who had brutally attacked a defenseless Jake. The fact that Jake had been bullying Sarah was conveniently omitted from the narrative. All that remained was the image of a grown man physically assaulting a teenager. The rumor mill churned relentlessly, fueled by gossip and speculation. Parents whispered amongst themselves at the school gates, their faces etched with concern and judgment. Teachers exchanged knowing glances in the staff room. their whispers following Michael like a shadow. The school, once a place of learning and growth, now felt like a courtroom. And Michael was the accused. He became the villain in a story he didn't recognize, his actions painted in the harshest possible light. The school board meeting was supposed to be about the school budget, but it quickly morphed into a public trial of Michael's character. Parents, their faces grim, lined up to condemn his actions, their voices dripping with righteous indignation. They spoke of the sanctity of the school environment, the need for adults to set a good example. They spoke of Michael's violence as if it were a contagious disease, a threat to their own children's safety. Michael sat there, listening to their accusations, his heart sinking with each passing word. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that he had acted out of love, out of desperation, but the words wouldn't come. How could he possibly explain the depths of his fear, the lengths he was willing to go to protect his daughter? The room felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with judgment and condemnation. Michael felt utterly alone, adrift in a sea of angry faces. The aftermath of the school board meeting was swift and brutal. Sarah, once the victim, became the bully's daughter, ostracized by her peers. Kids whispered behind her back, their words like poison darts. They avoided her in the hallways, their eyes filled with a mixture of fear and judgment. The isolation was suffocating, crushing Sarah's spirit with its relentless weight. Michael watched in agony as his daughter retreated further into herself, her once bright eyes now clouded with pain. He had wanted to protect her, but his actions had only made things worse. The guilt was a heavy weight, pressing down on him, threatening to suffocate him. He had become a pariah, his name synonymous with violence and instability. The town, once a place of comfort and familiarity, now felt hostile, suffocating. Michael knew he couldn't stay, not anymore. He had to protect Sarah, even if it meant leaving everything behind. The moving truck rumbled down the street, leaving behind the only home Sarah had ever known. Michael watched it go, his heart heavy with a mixture of regret and relief. He had protected his daughter, but at what cost? They were leaving behind friends, family, a life they had built together. The future stretched before them, uncertain and daunting. Michael knew that the whispers wouldn't stop at the town limits. The rumors would follow them, a dark cloud hanging over their lives. But he was determined to rebuild, to create a safe haven for Sarah, a place where she could heal and thrive. He had made mistakes, terrible, life-altering mistakes. But he had learned a valuable lesson, one etched in the lines on his face and the pain in his heart. Sometimes, even with the best intentions, silence can speak louder than words. And sometimes the price of protection is higher than we ever imagined.